Hello and welcome back to your South King County Real Estate Update. My name is Sarah Eggleston with Stone Egg Realty at Berkshire Hathaway, and I am back with your local real estate news for the month. We'll go ahead and get on right on into it because there is a lot to get through today, and I apologize in advance if I go a little quick through this, but there's a lot I wanted to cover today. And there was actually more, but I cut out quite a bit. So we'll go ahead and jump on into it. It is September 2025, and this is your South King County Real Estate Update. First off, I do have a couple classes coming up. One is next week. It's called The Secret Wonders of Winter Home Buying, and it is on Thursday at 6 p.m., the 25th. Next month on the 16th, I have the House Hack Hustle. So this one's about buying a home, living in it, and creating income from that home. So if you are interested in finding a way to offset your mortgage, this is the class for you. And I do have fall buyer and seller guides available. They are just out. So if you would like one, go ahead and request it. I can send a PDF copy or send it out through the mail, a hard copy. Just let me know how I can get this to you. I also have a first-time homebuyer guide here. So if you're interested in that, I can pass that along too. And into the news. Selling a Seattle home, price it right, or get stuck. So overall, the Seattle area housing market is far from the crazy days that we had during the pandemic, but it is not considered slow. Fewer single family homes hit the market in August, driving up prices, and we had fewer homes come to the market than a year ago by a little under 200 in the King County area. Median sale price of single family homes in King County was $990,000, which is up 3% from 1 year ago. And even though August saw fewer single family homes and condos hitting the market, buyers had plenty of options because of the backlog of inventory that we've had from homes that had listed in prior months and are still available for sale. In King County, August active listings for single family homes and condos were 31% higher than this same month a year ago. Here's the home price chart. So you can see this slight decline from a couple months ago on King County home prices. But that is kind of what we'd expect to see this time of year. January, February, March, April kind of goes up and then ticks down in the fall and into the early winter. And then we hit a influx again of home prices. And for sellers, the market is mixed. Depending on the location and type of home, many sellers are still receiving multiple offers, but others may need to wait for the right buyer and negotiate and price their home lower than they might want to. Homes that are priced too high will sit on the market longer. On Zillow, the median time from listing to pending is 23 days in Seattle, but homes that are still active have been on the market for a median of 48 days. So the homes that are selling quick. Other homes are just sitting on the market. And when you have a gap like that, it usually means that homes that are attractive, marketed well, and priced correctly are moving quickly, and the ones that are not are lingering. So they gave a case study in this article here, and this person agreed to price her 4-bedroom home in the Renton Highlands slightly lower than she would have liked on August 17th and received 2 offers in a couple of days. And she said, I'm really glad we listened to our agent because we might have priced it higher. And then I think we may not have seen that interest. So this is a really common thing that's happening. If sellers pay attention to their agents and list their home a little bit lower than they think it might be worth, it gets a lot of traffic and that price can go up in bidding wars. Otherwise, if it's priced too high, it's going to sit for a little while. Buyers may have more leverage with condos and townhomes, which are taking longer to sell on average as the market softens. Still, condos that were historically first-time buyers' ticket into the Seattle real estate market are becoming unaffordable. So the median price for King County condo was up 5% in August from a year ago to $549. Renters are hesitating to buy amid these high interest rates, which hovered above 6.5% in August, and rising condo owner fees needed to maintain the building. So this is something that I have definitely seen. People are looking at the prices of these condos and going, yeah, that seems a little bit more affordable. until they see what the condo dues are going to cost every month. And that can really increase your monthly payment needed for that home. So they're looking at their rental versus the condo and going, well, I can't really afford to pay that much more than my rent is right now. So they keep renting. But the condo dues are definitely something that you have to pay attention to when you're looking at condo homes. For August median price of home and condo sales, so this is home prices. The dark blue line is this year, light blue is last year. So Seattle is a little bit higher than it was last year. East side's a little bit lower. In the south end here, we're pretty close to where we were last year on home prices for August. And for condos in Seattle East Side and North King, outpacing where we were last year, but in the south end here, just barely lower than we were 1 year ago. For the number of home and condo sales, in the south end here in Southwest King, we're right where we were last year. Southeast King did see fewer home sales than 1 year ago. And on condo sales, it's pretty flat in Southwest King again, and a little bit less in Southeast King. And looking at our area compared to nationwide, changes in home price growth vary by region. So in the West here, we have already had a lot more inventory come back since the pandemic compared to the East Coast here in the central region. They're still having a little bit more of an inventory shortage. We are getting more inventory on the market. So the percent change in home prices is not as drastic as like the East Coast here. The mid-Atlantic is up almost 7% on their home prices, but we're pretty close to flat over here. And this is the deputy chief economist at First American. While there will be a significant regional variation, the underlying fundamental conditions of the national housing market support a natural moderation of house prices rather than a sharp decline. And we are actually seeing those list prices flatten. This is again nationwide. The past couple months have been pretty close to the same. And if we look at that a little bit further back, this is that seasonal cycle that I was talking about a few minutes ago, where we see home prices increase in the spring and summer, and then gradually tick down into the winter, and then pick up again in January. So you can see we've been pretty stable here on prices for the past few years. And that brings us to our hyperlocal breakdown. Kent, Renton, Auburn, and Federal Way. For new listings from a year ago, we were down in most areas. Federal Way is up just a little bit, at 3% higher than we were last year for new listings. Homes for sale are up in all of those areas from where we were 1 year ago. So you can see those homes have built up in the market over the past few months, and we have more inventory now available than we did 1 year ago. For pending sales, up 31% in Kent from 1 year ago, which you can see this jump. We're up a lot from last month. Auburn is also up from last month and 1 year ago, but Renton and Federal Way have both come down a little bit. Renton actually did tick up from last month, but from a year ago, it's down 3%. Median days on market. So this is about how long homes sit on the market before they go pending. We are up in all areas quite a bit. So more inventory available to choose from on average. And median sales price, we are completely flat in Renton, almost flat in Auburn, and then up in Federal Way and Kent from 1 year ago. But if we look compared to last month, Auburn and Renton did tick down a little bit, and Federal Way and Kent did come up in median sales price from last month. And that brings us to mortgage rates. So last time we met, last month, the long-term rate had fallen to 6.63 for our weekly average rate, and our daily rate was 6.57. And today, for our weekly average mortgage rate, it has dropped to 6.26. So definitely seeing a trend here. Mortgage rates have been mostly declining since late July amid expectations that the Fed would cut rates for the first time since last year. As expected, the central bank delivered a quarter-point cut Wednesday and projected it would lower its benchmark twice more this year, reflecting growing concerns over the U.S. job market. So when the job market is not doing well, interest rates will drop to stimulate the economy and try and get people more jobs. The late summer slide in mortgage rates has been a welcome trend for the housing market, which has been in a slump since 2022 when mortgage rates began climbing from historic lows. Sales of previously occupied U.S. homes sank last year to their lowest level in nearly 30 years and have remained sluggish so far this year, as an average rate on a 30-year mortgage has mostly hovered above 6.5%. Mortgage rates have eased into the low 6% range, a shift that would support a modest pickup in home sales in the coming months. However, the broader impact will remain limited, as 81% of homeowners still hold mortgages below 6%, reducing the incentives to sell or move. Still, the pullback in mortgage rates has led to a surge in homeowners who bought in recent years after rates climbed above 6% to refinance now to a lower rate. Mortgage applications, which include loans to buy a home or refinance an existing mortgage, jumped nearly 30% last week from the previous week. That, for a 1 week jump, 30% is eye-raising. Yeah, that caught my attention. Of those, nearly 60% of all the applications last week were for refinancing. So it doesn't necessarily mean that more homes are coming to the market, but just seeing that 30% jump in 1 week is a big number. And for our daily rate, we are actually at 6.35 today. Looking back, you can see this week, actually after the Fed met, the Fed dropped their benchmark rate 0.25% and interest rates shot up. Why is that? Well, a big part of that reason is because the cut was very much expected. Pretty much everyone expected the Fed to do the 0.25% cut. So that was already baked into the rates. But the projection of what is to come was a little bit questionable. If you're one of those people asking how much lower your mortgage rate quote is after Fed Day, this is required reading. So for 2 days, rates surged higher after the Fed met and cut the rate, but the Fed funds rate does not dictate mortgage rates. The federal funds rate only changes on Fed announcement days, which is 8 times a year. It changes in response to various economics reports and events. Mortgage rates change daily, and the bonds that drive those mortgage rates change in real time throughout the day. And that means mortgage rates can drop for all the same reasons that drove yesterday's rate cut. Because those reasons were already in play well before yesterday, mortgage rates had already responded to them well before yesterday. Well, this is 2 days ago because this article came out yesterday. And the bottom line is the Fed funds rate and mortgage rates dropped for the same reasons, but the mortgage rates got to do it sooner because they move more nimbly. A couple quotes here. First one's from the chief economist at Moody's Analytics. The risks are increasingly high that we are going into a recession. We're not there yet, and maybe this thing gets turned around, but that's increasingly becoming hard to do with each passing week. This next one's the director of economic policy studies at the American Enterprise Institute. I think the worst is yet to come when it comes to tariff-driven inflation. I think over the next few months, we're going to see more and more evidence that the tariffs are showing up in inflation. So talking about inflation, the Fed's rate is 2%. They really want to get that inflation rate back to 2%. And we've come down significantly from our highest point in 2022, but we're still at almost 3% for the consumer price expenditure index. But every downturn ends in recovery. In the past, here's a few different recessions that we have had: the early 1980s recession, 2008 Great Financial Crisis, 2020 COVID, and then 2022 to present slowdown. If we look at those, home sales dropped, and it took 4 years to recover from the 1980s recession, 3 years from the 2008 financial crisis, 8 months for COVID, and then TBD for our current one. But if we look at the home price trend in the early 80s, home prices actually went up and mortgage rates went up and down. For 2008, the home prices went down and then up, and then the mortgage rate trend was down. COVID, home price trend was very up, if you remember that, and mortgage rate trend was down. And then for now, our home price trend is pretty flat and mortgage rate trend is up. So what goes up must come down as far as mortgage rates are concerned. in the early 80s. It went up and then came down. So we're just waiting for the second part because we are not all the way through through this yet. But mortgage rates have come down since the beginning of the year, and I expect to continue on that direction. For home price expectations, the most pessimistic projections are 6.7% by 2029, and the most optimistic quartile is 27.4% increase in price from now until 2029. But the average is 17.6%. So we are not headed towards a market crash. Home prices will continue to increase. Just at what rate is the debate here. Just giving you reasons why people think the recession is coming. Unemployment is still holding steady, but job growth is stalling out. So we are not seeing new jobs be created at the rate that we have in the past. So this is one of the data points that is kind of the point towards recession. And this is the chief economist at Redfin. The Fed is in a tough spot. Some argue that with a weakening labor market, it's time to bring rates down. Others point to rising inflation and say a rate cut is misguided. So there's two sides of the coin there. The most likely scenario, the Fed will cut rates to stabilize the labor market, viewing any inflation from tariffs as temporary. But if that assumption proves wrong, we could be looking at rate hikes again in 2026. As far as projections, I think these are a little bit conservative. I think that there's a really good chance that we will drop a little bit lower than these, but people don't want to stick their neck out there and say so. So they're saying by the end of the year, we'll be at 6.55%. And then at the end of Q2 2026, we'll be at 6.4. So not a drastic drop from where we were, but definitely headed in that direction. So just a reminder, those fall buyer and seller guides and my first time home buyer guide are available. Just let me know how I can get one of those to you. And upcoming class on September 25th, next week, on the secret wonders of winter home buying, which, as you saw earlier in the presentation, home prices tend to go down in winter. So if you're looking for a deal, this could be a really good opportunity to get in. And if rates do go down, especially if they go down more than that projection there, buyers are going to flood back into the market. There's a whole lot of people out there that are like, no, I can't buy right now. I got to wait for rates to drop. I got to wait for rates to drop. But if there's a way that you can buy now while the rates are a little bit higher and then refinance out of that rate later, that's going to probably prove better in the long run than waiting for lower rates and paying a higher price, because that higher price is going to offset any savings you would have through the lower rates. And the house hack hustle, turn your first or next home purchase into an income stream, learn what to buy, what to avoid, and how to search smarter. So if you want to buy a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, there is the same mortgage options available as single family homes. So you can buy something using a single family home loan type, which generally has a better rate and down payment and all that than an investment property. And you can have multiple units that you rent out, and that offsets your mortgage. This is a really clever way to get into a home and have it be financially feasible. So if you're interested in that, please let me know, sign up for the class, and I would love to see you there. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My phone number and email address are on the screen there. I'd love to have a conversation with you about the market in your area or an area you're interested in, or answer any questions from this very fast-paced overview today of what is happening in the market. Thank you so much for joining me for your South King County real estate update. If you found this helpful, hit the like, subscribe, share with a friend, and I would love to just have this information reach as many people as possible. So hopefully you found it valuable, and I will be back next month with your local update. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your month. See you next time.